Welcome back to part 4 of the knife making videos I've been making. This time it's onto the sheaths. For this I'm using kydex. This one's orange, which is quite useful because it helps you see what I'm doing a bit better. And first thing to do is to mark the kydex to the pieces you want, or the piece you want if you're making a large sheath. But for neck knives you tend to, well, I tend to use 2 sections of kydex sandwiched together rather than one folded over and round. So what I'm going to do is work out what size I need, and as a general rule of thumb you want about an inch extra on each side. And just to make this more efficient kydex wise, this is an 8-inch sheet, 8-inch wide that way, or almost 8 inches, 200mm. So what I'm going to do is mark in 100mm, so that gives me the length, and that will work out once the knife's in there. Where are we? 100mm. That works out as about an inch past the point. So I'll mark that up first. That's right. So they don't have to be exact because you trim them up once it's done anyway. But as long as they're within the boundaries of what you need. Okay, now onto this part. Give ourselves an inch either side. Which is about there. And about there. So that is about 85mm in. So mark that at the top, 85. That is, make sure that is 85. Mark across the two. And now we need to cut it out. Right, sorry about that. The memory card filled up while I was filming that bit. And as I was saying, the easiest way to cut the kydex out is to use a straight edge along the line, score across the line with a Stanley knife or a sharp craft knife of some kind several times, just to make sure it's well and truly scored. And once it's scored, you can bend the kydex along the line and snap it, so it'll give you a perfectly straight line along where you've scored. And do that again for this part. So it is quite slippery stuff, so you will have to try and hold it as best you can. So you could clamp it down to a work surface while you're doing this, just to stop it moving around. And there you go. Now it's onto the oven, or a hot plate is some people use, but I use an oven because you need to heat up the kydex so that you can mould it around the blade. What you'll need to do is heat the oven up to about 170 or 180 degrees centigrade, then pop the kydex in on a silicone sheet, sort of like a silicone baking sheet like these, that one there, with the flat side down, because there's a flat side on kydex and a textured side. So you want the flat side down. I mean, I'm only going to do one sheath at a time, because by the time you set it in the press and mould it, the other one will have gone cool and hardened by then. But pop it in there in the oven for 170 or 180 degrees for about 6 minutes, and that will make it pliable enough to mould around the shape of the blade. That time may vary on different thicknesses of kydex, but I use the 2mm stuff, so that works for that perfectly fine. So other ways you can do it is using a heat gun, by heating, like blowing the hot air over the top of the kydex and then just picking it up every now and then to see if it's supple enough or soft enough. and then you can put it into a press, which I'll show you in a moment, and mould it around the blade. Put the two pieces together like so and squash it in the press. Right, and so I'll show you the press before I do anything else. You can buy proper presses, but for mine all I use is a couple of layers of old roll mat on some MDF board, just taped roughly to hold them in place, and same there. What happens is you put a piece of kydex on the press, move it in shot properly, lay your knife in where you want it to be moulded, the other piece of kydex on top, and then press the whole lot together and clamp that until it's cooled off. What I do, because this isn't particularly heat resistant material, is I use the silicone sheet that we used in the oven on top of it first, just to protect the foam from any of the heat that's in the kydex itself, and then fold that over the top, and then, as I say, line that up, press it, clamp it, wait for it to cool, and then I'll show you the next step when I've done that. Okay, here we go. Should have said you should use gloves as well, because it can be quite hot stuff. Make sure it's all lined up. And now we can press. Now we've just got to wait for that to cool down, which should take about 15-20 minutes, so I'll give it half an hour just to make sure. Okay, I've given it a bit of time to cool down, so now is the moment of truth, as they say. And there we go, the formed sheath in two parts, so that when they're attached together with eyelets, that will provide a nice secure clasp for our knife. Now, what I should have said before is you cover the blade with tape, a thin layer, one layer of tape on each side, and that just helps it, gives it that little bit extra room inside the sheath, so that when it is attached together it's not impossible to get it in and out, and it stops it scratching the blades quite as much as well, giving it that little bit looser fit. Now what we've got to do now is mark and drill where our eyelets are going to go. Clamp it up again so that it doesn't move around while you're drilling, and now we need to figure out where to put the holes. So that's going to trim off to there. There's about 10 mil. Sorry, I should have said they're about 10 mil away from the side minimum. Again, it depends really on what knife you're making, or what knife you're putting a sheath on. And up here we need enough room for the blade to slide out. So around about there will do. Right, now these are the eyelets I'm using. You can buy them from that well-known auction site, and they come with a setting tool as well. Now what you've got to find out before you start drilling is the diameter of each eyelet, which these don't actually say on them. I think they're about 7mm. Maybe they're a lot less than that. So the easiest way is to get your drill bit or one of your drill bits and hold it against the edge. Now this one is a bit too small, and that's a 5.5mm, so we need a 6mm bit. There we go, that's a 6mm bit. And that needs to go into our drill press again. There we go, like so, and carry on for the rest of the holes, and I'll get back to you when I've drilled those. Okay, now all of the holes have been drilled for the eyelets. You can get on with actually placing the eyelets, and these come with they're a front and back, so whichever side you want it to hang, like on your neck that way or around that way, decide that, and then make them so that they're the front. And to set these eyelets, very straightforward, if you don't drop them on the floor. Push them through both layers, like so, and then lay the washer on the back over the top of them. Get your setting tool, and they say on the back which way they should be, so the eyelet should be on the lower half, which is that one there, the smaller setting tool, so that should be sat in there, and the one with the pin goes in the back, and then you tap them with a hammer. So, and I have to do that over there, so because this top's not solid enough for hammering on. So I'll get back to you once I've attached all the eyelets in and flatten them out. Right, now all of the eyelets are in, so we can check to make sure that the blade sits in it nicely, which it does. It's not going to shake out, but you can still get it in and out. And then what we need to do is trim the final shape to what we need it, because obviously these are slightly uneven edges where it's been in the press, so we need to even those out and shape the top how we want it. So I'll get on with that, and for this I'll be using the bench mounted belt sander, which is currently behind the press, so I've got to move that here and start working on it. Move that down there. Start working on it, and hopefully that will be the sheath finished then, once we've shaped it, apart from maybe linishing the edges slightly, but I'll show you that. Okay, so that's the shape that I want it to finish up at, and now I just got to sand it into shape. Okay, now that's the shape I want it, I need to ease the edges or linish the edges. Different people call it different things, but I must admit, I usually call it easing the edges. It's just to round it over right on the corners there. So how I do this is you take the belt off your belt sander, turn it inside out, so you've got the fabric side on the outside. Put the belt back on the belt sander, make sure it's tracking right, like that, and then what I'm going to do is just run the corners over the fabric and ease them over. And there we go. One finished kydex sheath, apart from cleaning off the marker pen that we put on it earlier. Might need to tidy up just around the inside there, but I can't do that on that sander, so there you go. Thanks for watching.